Hello, hello. Everybody is clicking in. I am glad that you are here. You can just relax, and if you want to keep your video on, you can. If you want to turn your video off, you can. It doesn't really matter. I want you to be comfortable and in this space. People will be popping in and out. Some will be catching us on replay. However you are showing up today, I am so glad you're here. We're going to go so fast today and deep dive into a bunch of different resources to help you navigate this new wild world that we find ourselves in. I'm Suzanne Castle. I know most of you. I'm a writer, a speaker, a coach, and the creator of what I'm calling the collaborative leadership and brilliant teams model. And today we're going to spend about 45 minutes in this masterclass. And during our time together today, I'm going to speak to you about how we can enhance team connection and corporate culture, volunteer culture, leadership, all with the ultimate goal of optimizing the way that management and teams or volunteers and leaders work together, because when teams rise, we all rise together. Now, before we go any further, I know we have some solopreneurs that are going to be joining in, and I'm so glad you're here too, because as a solopreneur myself, these are strategies that I've used, that I've come up with, and they have helped me to define my projects, to get a team of supporters around me, and to give me clarity, and I know that they will do the same for you. So I hope you have something to take a few notes on. I'm going to share a screen, and we are going to dive right in together. So during our time together, we are going to cover a couple of excerpts and highlights from this method, and I'm going to touch on some kind of four main keys of this model that you see here. So the first one is how to build common ground with leaders, managers, and team members to create a high-performing team. Then we'll dive into how to adjust your communication influence and lead with clients, with volunteers, with employees, and teams. Then we'll dive into how to create momentum with culture shifts and goal setting that don't require major dollars, because let's face it, we're all in that money crunch moment right now with the pandemic around us. And then finally, we'll spend a few minutes talking about how to make decisions, how to explore new ideas, and we'll do this with a way that gets everyone participating, so you don't have one person dominating over the other. In the basic form, I want to remind you that what we really do is we try to break old patterns that don't work. And instead, we kind of find ourselves going here, going there, going everywhere. And what this does is it helps you kind of think through powerful communication strategies, how to show up as a leader, a different way to do project management that will transform your culture, really lead to some creative breakthroughs in your teams, and ultimately your profitability and reducing your stress level. I know I definitely need that. Now, some of the challenges that I often see when companies hire me to work with their management and their teams, they're easy to fall into because we're often not taught a better way to resolve issues or to enhance communication. And social media, I find, really just exasperates the challenges. People can fire off something really quickly. They just kind of lose their minds. They don't see someone face to face, and it's easy to kind of get confusion in there. And that happens because we get rewarded for putting our opinions out there, right? We get likes, we get shares, we get loves, people fight with us. All of that is reward, whether it's positive or negative, and we don't always see or know the consequences. And in the workplace or in nonprofit space, this causes disastrous consequences. I want to do something with you real quick. I want you to take a look at this picture. Just look at it real quick. And I want you to think to yourself for just a moment, how many of you saw the vase first? If you saw the vase in the chat box, I'd love for you to just type vase. Now, if you saw people first, then I'd love to see people. Just type people in the chat box. So you're going to type vase or you're going to type people. And now that you're typing vase or people, I think you're probably seeing the other one that you didn't see. What happens is when I do this, usually about 50% of the people see the vase and 50% of the people see people first. And everyone is actually right. Yet imagine the arguments that could ensue over having different perceptions. A few years ago, there was the picture on social media that went viral about the dress. Was it blue or was it black, right? There's all these different things. People are like, I don't know how you can see this or that. But different perceptions causes arguments, and that's why I'm here with you today. Because without tools like the ones I'm going to share, you might only see the vase or you might only see the people. But once we give the tools to our teams and to ourselves, we can see both. And that makes communication and team and culture, it makes everything function so much better. So today we're going to talk about clear, respectful communication, strong listening skills, optimized team dynamics, successful collaborations, and joyful culture. Quickly comment in the chat box, let me know if right now you're thinking about a person or a place or a situation that could use more respectful communication or listening skills. Just type me if you're thinking of somebody right now. I know that every time I talk about this, people are like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so over here. Yeah, they don't listen very well. Or, oh yes, oh gosh, I sit on this board and oh, we just cannot see eye to eye. It's something that we all do. And the funny thing is, I see your chats coming in. Yeah, I see lots of yeses on there, lots of me's. The funny thing is that we often think of other people first. And that's okay. It really is okay. But when 90% of us already have someone or a place or a group in mind, here's the hard truth I want to share with you right now. We're all contributing to that number. All of us. We all have room for improvement. All of us, 100% of the time. Some of you know my story, and I think it might be important as we think through what's actually going on here. So my road began actually as an entertainer, as an artist on the stage, and like that of most artists, it was not straight nor narrow. Early years were packed to the brim with dance and acting classes, coaching sessions, film and theater roles, teaching, and music set an unsustainable pace that was stopped abruptly short by a family tragedy. My plans were knocked from the spotlight into the shadows, and in a quieter season of seminary developed several ivory tower degrees, and a subtle reinvention followed. And in this kind of less spotlit space, I found my love for fostering the creative and tenacious spirit in others. And my commitment to seeing and amplifying that spirit began to set the stage for the work that I'm doing today. I've learned a thing or two about how to navigate a setback. Budget cuts have rendered me suddenly jobless. Old emotional traumas have demanded my energy for their healing. My own sparkle factor has had to sustain the complexities of loss, of disappointment, a reinvention, and ultimately time. And recapturing that glimmer in my soul honestly took years of patient practicing and failing, and sometimes even just stubbornly repeating the simplest truth. Staying stuck is never, ever the solution. I really believe that stuck is never the furthest that we can go. And so now I return again and again to the spark that comes in a room full of people like you, dreamers who collaborate on possibilities, this kind of presence that crackles that magical rewriting of what could be. And that zing is what keeps my creative spirit alive. And it's my joy to foster that kind of space for others through one-on-one coaching, grape stomping and song, group retreats and events, speaking engagements, well-crafted stories, art projects, stargazing, you name it, I do it. From speaking at Target to Disney, from large stages to teeny tiny offices, my joy now is helping leaders communicate and collaborate. So if you don't already have your paper and pen, you're going to want it because you're going to want to write a few things down. But please know, I am giving away a kit at the end of this class, and it's going to have details of everything that we're diving into and more. And it literally is going to become your quick implementation guide to each of these strategies. It's got scripts in it that you can automatically plug and play. But you might want to take some specific notes about what you're feeling, your specific circumstance, and maybe we can touch on that later. If at any time you've got a question, please pop it in the chat box, and I'll pause at different times and we'll dive into those. Okay, are we ready to go? All right, our first step is all about team dynamics and really kind of developing a high performance team. Your ability to connect and collaborate will lead you to a successful, high performing team every single time. This I know. It can be the classroom, it can be the boardroom, it can be volunteer staff, it could be a solo salesperson. Because I believe this, connecting can make or break success of that team. So you might want to jot this down. Connection equals influence. And that means that you can create influence, performance, a motivation level. You can create common ground, and you can resolve conflict more quickly when you have influence. And that influence comes through connections, and that connections are truly, truly powerful. Now, many of us see this connection component and think it's a natural born talent, right? I've heard it said time and time again, oh yeah, that person, they connect really well with others because that's just who they are. You either have it or you don't, right? And that's when we think about communication, when we're thinking only about words, maybe even kind of body language. And we might be challenged because we think influencing a team is about impressing the team with our awesome bank of knowledge. But jot this down. I think when it comes to building a high performance team, it's all about building common ground. So yes, that means it's not, I'm going to shout my opinion the loudest. It's about finding common ground, something I don't see much in the world right now. I don't know about you. So what do you want to find? You want to find common ground, right? Right. So first, I want to preface this by sharing that in this topic, in and of itself, I usually do this literally in a full day workshop, just teaching people how to connect with teams. But we're going to start with just one step right now today that everyone can implement without getting overwhelmed. So developing common ground is the very first rule of communication. Connectors connect on common ground. So when we get together, when we have a meeting, we're working on a project, we want to think about what brought us all together. That's a very different focus than what am I here to say? Like, I don't know about you, but so many times I go into meetings and people just come in with their own agenda, right? I know what I'm going to say. I got to get it out. And the whole time that someone else is speaking, they're thinking about what they want to say. Anybody feeling me on that? But when you come with a what brought us all together, that is a much different focus than what am I here to say? You see, one is self-focused, but the other is focused on the common goal, the common ground that is shared together by the people in the room. Do you guys see the difference? Give me a thumbs up in the chat box if you're feeling me. There are 3 barriers that I see over and over to blocking common ground. So let's talk about those 3 barriers. You might want to jot these down, so I put them up on the screen for you. The first one is assumption. The assumption means I already know how you feel and what you want already. You can see how that would kind of block communication, right? You've already decided how things are going. The second one is arrogance. Arrogance says, I don't need to know, right? I don't need to know. And the third one is indifference, and that means I don't care to know. I don't care. So the one thing you can see is that each of these is only focused on the me, right? I'm the one. I know how you feel. I know what you want. I don't need to know what you want. And honestly, I don't care, right? So the one thing you could start doing today, the next time that you meet with a group of people, is notice if you're slipping into one of these common ground blockers. Maybe practice it with your family member, right? And that begs the question, at least for me, so what are you going to do instead? Right? Okay, Suzanne, you told us what the blocks are, but well, how do I show up instead? Well, I have a full 4-step process that teaches you how to build common ground and a template that you can use once you've learned the process so that when you go into any kind of meeting or a project, you know exactly how to handle the conversation. And that's part of the kit I'm giving you at the end of the class. But for today, I want to focus with you on just one of the 4 steps, and you might want to write this down because it says be interested means asking questions. Right? So maybe something you didn't say, if you're coming with your statement and what you want to do, that's completely different than being interested and asking questions. Now, before we dive in to the reason for the meeting or the topic, what I like to do is use what's called the ask method, the ask method. And here it is right here. The ask method is a question outline template that uses A for assets, meaning that questions geared to the needs-based part of the conversation and making sure the resources are there. Okay, so I'm gonna ask questions about what assets do we already have, for example. S stands for sense. This is really the feeling-based part of the method, and that makes sure that everyone has a chance to express emotions about the project. Now, I don't know if you've ever done this, but when I've been in groups, it is very rare for someone to say, all right, how are we feeling about this? Who's feeling overwhelmed? Who's not really sure they want to go forward? Who can't wait to get started? We just assure that we have the automatic buy-in, but giving a chance for people to express emotions about the project can move it closer to what it needs to be. And finally, there's K, and K stands for knowledge, which is a deep dive into the skills, the abilities, and the education around a project to see it to completion. So you can see how this could all work together. You know, when you know your assets, you know how people are feeling, you understand your knowledge base, what you have, what you still need, it really does start to build that common ground. In the Jumpstart kit that's coming soon, I've given you this exact template. And under each of those letters, I've given you 5 or so questions that with helpful hints on how to use them, like in a meeting or the next time that you start a project. I will say if you start this way, you will immediately build common ground and offset any desire to fall into the barriers. This is the first step to create new communication breakthroughs for you and your team. Let's give it up for step 1. Holy moly, I hope that was worth your time alone. Am I right? We still have 3 more to go. Okay, I'm gonna stop here for just a minute. And I want to check in with you. How are we feeling? How is everybody doing? People wanna let me know in the chat box, how's it going? Is there a question about the ask method or anything that we have covered so far? We're good, we're good? Maybe a thumbs up. Okay, so let's jump back in. Okay, let's get going here. All right, here we go. And welcome, Micah. We're glad to see you. You can jump back into the first step on the replay. By the way, there is going to be a replay for this, so don't worry if I'm going so fast that you missed something. You'll have a full recording of this shortly thereafter. Okay, so here we are. We've already done step 1. You're beginning to understand how to build common ground in your meetings, how to make sure that you've got buy-in. And I use this, well, let's be honest, I try to use this with my family sometimes, family dynamics, and I forget to not assume that I know what they're feeling, right? So let's jump in and, but you know, before I do that, I want to give you a really good example. Let me give you a really good example of how to do this. So way back, get in your Wayback Machine with me, and there was the final presidential debate between Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter. It happened on October 28, 1980. I was 10 years old. And I remember watching this, but I didn't really understand what was going on until much later. It was a long while ago. There is footage on YouTube if you want to check it out. But here's why I want to share this example. Regardless of politics, set that aside. That's not what we're talking about. Remember, we're talking about communication. In that debate, Jimmy Carter kind of came across as cold, as impersonal, and really not responsive. You see, to every question he was asked, Carter would respond with facts and figures, important, mind you. But even Walter Cronkite described his performance as humorless. And Jimmy Carter, in that debate, he went so far as try to impress people. So he would go back and forth from cold facts so that he could be reelected. And then he would tell people, this job is really hard and it's very burdensome. And at one point in the debate, he even said, it's a very lonely job. Now, all of that might be true. Facts and figures are also important. But here's what happened. On the stage with him was Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan was engaged with the audience and with Carter. Here's what happened. Reagan shook Carter's hand before the debate, and every time that Jimmy Carter was speaking, Reagan would turn and look at him, would smile at him. You could tell he was intently listening, that he wasn't even writing down things. He wasn't working on what he's about to say. We just talked about that. And when it was Reagan's turn to speak, he didn't try to come across as an expert. Instead, his power was in connection. He told the people, you are what made this country great. You see, being focused on the people is what made a huge, huge difference. So I want you to think about this ask method and build that common ground so that you're on your way to this really high performance team. So let's jump into our second step now, and let's talk about communication personalities, because you can only go so far. You're like, okay, I'm following this, but man, people still aren't responding to me. And it seems like every time I speak or I go into a boardroom or I do some coaching of leaders, it becomes very clear to me that most of us have no clue that our personality also affects our community. Now you may say, oh yeah, I get it. Like, I know this person's cold or not. I know this person's listening or not, but that's not what I'm talking about. You see, understanding the specific personality style that you use to communicate, and then knowing your own style, and what about even knowing the styles of other people in the room, it will change what you do to communicate. It will literally change how you share the information so that people can literally hear what you're trying to say. So quick question, answer in the chat box if you will. How many of you have ever had a conversation at work or maybe even at home where you feel like you're saying how you feel or maybe what you think, and you're saying it so clearly and the other person just cannot hear what you actually mean? If that's you, like, raise your hand, give me a thumbs up, say me, whatever, let me know. Is this like, yeah, this happens in my household a lot. I have a teenager, and it can be so frustrating. I know for me, I'm like, how can I even be in the room with the same person? I know exactly what I'm saying. Why are they not getting what I'm laying down? And when I go into boardrooms and I'm watching their meetings, and I come out afterwards and I'm go, would you like to solve this problem? Like, would you really like to understand your unique communication personality? And then I go on to say, you know, adjusting your communication means that you influence people, that you lead people, your clients, employees, teams, whomever it is. And when you do that, when you know the attributes of your team and you help them understand how important it is to interact with each other, what I find is that teams will blend together. And you know what else happens? The crazy thing is friction gets minimized between members. So both towards the responsibilities that might get assigned to them and their relationships to each other. And I don't know about you, but I need way less time dealing with conflict and big personalities that can't handle each other. But I want to be honest with you, it is a challenge, right? When you think that everyone is the same, and when you think or have been told, because we've been sold a bill of goods, you have 2 ears, and we study communication. We go, here's what happens, and it goes in the ear, and then it connects in this part of the ear, and then it sends a signal to the brain, and then the brain sends the signal to your emotions. That is the scientific process, but guess what? Not everyone hears the same. Or how many of you have maybe thought that only a people person can communicate well? That's why nobody listens to me, because I'm not a people person, right? I've heard that all my life. And if we're honest, we sometimes avoid people who communicate differently than we do, right? We all have the person that we'd rather send the text to get on the phone. Or, gosh, I really don't want to walk in that room in that meeting. I'm not going to go in that office right now. I'll just write it down, and I'll follow up with an email later. And you know what happens when that happens? It can lead you to hiring or finding the right people around you. You can avoid collaboration with certain people because you just don't think you communicate well, and possibly avoiding people putting together on teams that are different, but different rocks. You see, lots of challenges can result from this. And what happens is it limits opportunity. So from an organizational perspective, personality assessments provide a company or a group of people additional information on potential hires, existing employees, how volunteers need to be working together. And in situations where collaboration and teamwork are necessary for success, you need to understand everyone's natural tendencies. And when you do, it helps with role definition, project assignments, team formation, even hiring. And these personality styles can be used to build an engaging work environment. There are several reasons, I think, why we see personality profiles. A while ago, I did a quick little poll in a Facebook group to find out, who's taken strengths finders, or who's done the Myers-Briggs, or who's done the color theory, et cetera, et cetera. They're really popular in the workplace because they can reveal strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes you can leverage that to natural gifts and minimize blind spots. You can assess somebody's suitability for a role, and they are really used to help team leaders and managers coach, and they're really good. But the one that I have found to be most helpful is DISC, personality assessment, but I have shifted it slightly and kind of created my own version of it, which I call the communication personality blueprint. Let's take a look at part of this. I'm going to give it to you shortly afterwards in your Jumpstart kit, but I want you to take a look at something. When you look at this on the screen, you can see that DISC is what the normal disc does, and D refers to dominant. So these are the people, I want you to think about them right now, that are daring, they're decisive, they're direct, they're driven people, right? Right now you've got someone in your mind, right? You know these people. The I people refer to interactive people. So these are people that are imaginative, they're influential, they're very intuitive, they're inspirational, right? When you're moving around that circle, you see an S, and S refers to supportive people. These are the people that are sincere, they're steadfast, they're sympathetic, they're very satisfied in their life. And then you get to the C, which refers to conscientious people. These are cautious, they can be critical, they're very concise, consistent rule followers. And teamwork and collaboration essentially boils down to how well members communicate with each other, how each person adapts to different personalities, how they operate as a unit. So this system can help teams perform at a higher level. And a high-performing team is one that's diverse. So if you have all Ds on your team, what happens? Right, you get nothing done. Everybody yells at each other. They think they have the best way. All they do is come up with the same idea, this idea, this idea, this idea. They can't focus because they don't have any Cs on their team. And the C people on their team are going to come up with the process and help you maintain the rules. And the S person on the team, well, that person's going to make sure everybody's supported and feeling good. They're kind of the cheerleaders. And the I's are going to be the ones that figure out a way when the way's not working. That's why this is important. This unique communication style blueprint that I'm going to show you, it provides a framework in which to better understand motivations and preferences for each individuals on the team. So you can see about balance. If you imagine a team full of dominance, there's leadership struggles. A team full of conscientious people would be too risk averse. They're not going to go anywhere. They're too by the book. They have problems transitioning from planning to action. So when you look at this, and then this is more of the wheel right here that's going to be in your Jumpstart kit. When you move from the center and you say, okay, I'm identifying more with the I, then you're going to be like, okay, you see those two color things on either side of that. And then you say, okay, which part am I at? Am I more the yellow red or am I more the yellow green? And then as you go more and more and you move from the center, you go to that quadrant. And then you find, do you have risk takers, right? And then you go across your wheel. Do you have these people represented in your group? Do you see how this can be helpful? Let me know in the chat box. You see, if you're forming a new team, then the DISC style helps ensure that you have the optimal mix of people so that you can be the most successful that you possibly can. Now, let's say you have an existing team. When you know each individual's preference and what makes everyone aware of each other's style preferences, your meetings are better. Your projects go better. This awareness allows for people to adapt to each other. If your team is always stuck in the storming phase because you have a bunch of Ds, then what you can do is bring in other kinds of people, or at least start asking questions from the other styles of personality to make sure that your whole team is running more effectively. And once you know your own preferred DISC style, you will better relate to each other. You'll appreciate strengths, what you bring to the team, and your own weaknesses so that you can be better equipped to develop professionally and ask the right questions. So I'm going to give this unique communication style blueprint to you for free today so that you can see what it looks like when you show up at your best, and when your style tips a little too far, you might want to temper it a bit. So you don't really need to change anything yet. You just want to notice when and how it's showing up. And here's the hot tip. You will be shocked what happens when you do this. When you speak to someone in a different quadrant than you, be mindful and see what happens when you move to the middle. So D's and I's come down a little bit, right? I'm an ID, I'm a mix of D and I. So I know I can come across pretty dominant and I'm very imaginative, so I can overwhelm people. So sometimes I bring it down and I come into my C a little bit and I give a way through. I come up with some structures, right? S and C, you've got to move up. You've got to bring your energy up a little bit. So what are you going to do, everybody? You're going to try to meet in the middle in your team. So check in the chat box. I'm seeing Micah said that she finds this super helpful. The more you know about yourself, the more you can be compassionate with others. Exactly. So believe me, this works. This personality tool measures your tendencies, it measures your preferences, your patterns of behavior, communication, and knowing you and your team will help unlock strategies. So imagine with me your very own personalized assessment with detailed analysis, suggestions for growth areas, even details on how to get along with others. And can you imagine what this looked like if your whole team did something like that? I can do that for you, but we're not going to dwell on that now because we still have 2 more keys to get to today. So here we go. We're going to jump to the next one. Are you ready? The next step is how you talk about joyful culture and momentum, because ideally you started asking questions and building common ground, and then you're aware of the different personalities and how you're functioning together in a team. So the next phase would be to create an environment that's joyful, it's inspiring, it's productive, it's collaborative. Think about like vibrant energy, right? I want people right now to maybe think for a minute. I hear this all the time. People comment on their workplaces, right? And they either are like, oh my gosh, where I work is so fascinating because it's thriving, the business is growing, it's a magnet for talent, it's highly productive. Or people will say, oh my God, I hate my cubicle, I can't get anything done, people are always bugging me. It's literally one or the other, right? There's never really like, oh, my workplace is okay. And whether it's your home office space or your penthouse office suite, creating a culture of joy, I have found, is one of the most crucial items to success. Because without this, there isn't buy-in from teams. Teams don't work well together. People feel alone. People don't feel valued. And with a culture and an environment that makes you feel good, people feel like they contribute, that they're valued. And I find that people go to great lengths to create success. They collaborate well together, and the team is kind of nimble, and they're ready to rise up to challenges. And ultimately, when that happens, people stay longer with the company, or they stay longer on a team, and they want to grow and be a part of that. I have to pause because I know right now some of you are like, well, but there's always interruptions. And yes, well, this happens. And right now I've got this pile of this over here. And so I can't even think about building a joyful culture. Okay, I get it. All right, I do. Interruptions are part of the job, and especially in these wacky virus days of whatnot. But we can manage some of that. But I don't want you to think that a joy-filled culture workplace is this kind of hippie-fied yoga mats and juice bars and people just sit on big giant balls and they don't even sit in a chair anymore. I want you to think that. Some don't believe that joy is important for the workplace either, right? Some of you might even be saying to yourself, well, I just have to put up with certain personalities, and those personalities are joy thieves. Or I work in my living room has a toddler in it right now and toys everywhere. But you know what? There's a way out of that kind of mindset. Those things could be true, okay? I'm not saying they're not true. But I do want you to keep in mind, I do entire retreats on joyful culture, but mindfulness and getting your mind right is one of the first keys that you need to create that kind of joy structure around you. So today, let's focus on priority setting, okay? So instead of focusing on the things that are zapping your energy, let's focus on the things that put you towards energy. One of the things that I have done and given out, some of you may even have it already, I've created this thing called a Speedy Priority Finder. So I've expanded it in the kit that I'm giving you today. And I developed this tool a very long time ago. When I was feeling off track, I was feeling overwhelmed. I wasn't really sure what to do next, what to do first. And so I just didn't do anything. Anybody ever been in that space before? You have so many things, you don't do anything, right? So what I did is I decided I spent a day away from everybody, away from my house, and I decided I need to develop a different way because what I'm doing is not working. So this Speedy Priority Finder is a tool that helps you stay on track, helps you stay in the zone. It can work for your work-life balance. And let's start today with just 3 questions, okay? You're probably gonna wanna jot these down. You can use this for your work day. You can use them for a meeting. You can use them for a project. Hey, you could even use them to figure out what household chore you have to tackle first. There's lots of applications. And again, there's a much more detailed process, but this is the down and dirty quick start, okay? Because I'm all about, let's make sure you've got good actions for today. So the first one that you want to jot down would be, what is your top goal right now? So you would want to write that down, and you can do it now, but we're going to keep going, or you might just want to jot this down and do this after the class. So what's your top goal right now? Notice I didn't say goals, I said goal. So you get 1. What's your top goal right now? And then the next question is, what's the number one thing that zaps your joy and distracts you from this top goal? And what we're going to do is we're going to work on minimizing that. Okay. And the next question is, what is the number one thing that enhances your motivation, your performance, your energy, and moves you closer to that one goal? And then you work on maximizing this. Okay. So do this yourself, and you can talk through this with employees and team members. Again, at meetings, you can ask everybody to take 5 minutes at a meeting and do this so that you can support your team. This is a really great tool to give to teenagers, right? Especially when they're looking at college applications. If you're looking at expanding your education, this is a really good tool to help you get focused on that. And again, there's a resource at the end, and it's going to have more than just these questions in it. It will help you hone your priorities. So right now, what I want you to try to do is set an intentional practice with me. So maybe think about setting a reminder, okay? Maybe set a reminder in your phone, right? That whatever time you start your day, let's say, well, you might want to get coffee first. So let's say it's 6:45, you're going to start your day. So you're going to set an alarm at 6:45 that just says priorities. And for the next 30 days, I want you to choose that time of the day, and I want you to review your questions every day. Just these 3 questions. Is this my top goal? What's keeping me from that goal? What am I doing towards that goal? Every day for 30 days. Now, this action guide full of tips and how to show and lead up in a more positive and skillful way, these kind of mindful leadership actions that boost your team's motivation and add positive energy and build stronger relationships with your team, that's a whole day thing. In fact, it's a corporate retreat thing too. And in that, we identify and release energy zappers. We talk about the top 14. There are 14 strategies to stay focused at the office. You can have laser focus when you need it, when you're hitting your goals. But this little exercise that we just did, it will lead you to more joy in no time. It doesn't take all day. It should take you about 5 minutes, okay? I was reading an article about the ongoing battles in the workplace with earbuds, right? These little babies, right? And the observations were about generational friction that's developing around the obstacles to communication in the workplace. So there were baby boomers on this call, and I'm just generalizing. There were baby boomers, they named themselves, they were baby boomers, and they noted the annoyance of earbuds in the office and how irritating it was to approach a coworker and have to wait for them to unplug their headphones before they can speak to them. Some of the people on this call, they even noticed, yes, it's very disrespectful. And someone said this exact phrase: they don't care enough about office etiquette or interpersonal communication to pull their earbuds out at work, so I don't care enough to help them be successful. I was taken aback. But then in the article that followed this call I was on, it talked about the flip side to that. And it talked about that these people that were complaining about that, those people all had their own offices. And the people they were talking about were coworkers with cubicles. And usually they were younger because they hadn't yet got the status of the penthouse suite, right? And where noise pollution was a real thing for those people. And so 75% of them listened to music while working because it was a thing to help them hone out the noise pollution and stay focused on their work environment. I was so taken aback because it was just simple miscommunication, right? You see, joy in the environment and understanding what's working in the culture of your workplace is absolutely important if you're looking to attract and keep good talent and team members. And it starts with knowing your priorities, building common ground, and understanding your communication personality, right? Let's keep moving. We've got one more step. Take a big deep breath. You've probably been taking notes. Maybe shake your shoulders a little bit. We're moving and we're shaking, and I hope you've already gotten a lot of value from this. So let's jump into the last one. I am so excited to share this with you. I cannot even tell you. Step 4 is called the Roundtable. The Roundtable. This is my project management system that I've developed using research from Edward de Bono with the 6 thinking hats, using Atomic Habits, using work from Todd Henry, and I kind of came up with my own, because those things were all kind of working for me, but not exactly. So on this last step, I'm going to teach you about a method of project management that helps me, and hopefully you, maybe make decisions and explore new ideas in the most effective manner. It's all about optimization. Now, before I go any further, I want to say, you're gonna hear me talk a lot about using this in a team, but I'm a solo person. person. I use this by myself. I put on every single character and make sure that don't have blind spots. So you can use it by yourself or with the team. It works really great for volunteers as well. So let me tell a little bit more about it. This kind of project management system, it helps you maintain clarity, really good communication, creativity, and productivity. So basically what it does is it helps avoid potholes that could have come up as we move forward implementing everything that we've learned so far, and decisions that we have to make. If we're tasked with a project, we've got a strategic plan we have to come up with, for example, and I call it the Roundtable Project Management. Now, my kid would say, you mean like the pizza, Roundtable Pizza? No. I'm talking about King Arthur's Round Table. So it works for yourself and it works for teams every single time. I have not had it fail once, because it's all about thinking management. So better thinking management creates a climate of creativity, clarity, and when you maintain focus and clarity, what happens? You reduce confusion, projects stay on track, you work with more focus, and they get streamlined. So when I teach this, usually there are people that have, oh, but. So I want to dispel some of those common buts, those myths. And the first one, and maybe you've said this yourself, the reason that you don't have a team, or the reason you don't share information, or the reason you don't ask someone to come alongside you is because you can do it better, faster. Anybody? If you want to get really, really vulnerable, you can say me in the chat box. Anybody been there? I can do it faster, I can do it better myself, right? Tying your shoe, yeah, you can probably do it better and faster yourself. Developing a project plan? Nope, not even. I also hear people say, well, you can stop right there because in my workplace, Suzanne, my ideas aren't valued. So I never speak up because my ideas aren't valued. Okay, hang on, I got you on that one too. But one of the biggest challenges that I see are unforeseen consequences. So these are those unforeseen problems that creep up in the plans, and they always happen. And it's because A, you didn't value your people, or B, you tried to do it all yourself. So let's face it, we've all been there. We have all been there. But this method helps you from falling into that pitfall of problems. So what it does is it calls for characters sitting together at a round table. Round is really important because there's no leader. Everyone has equal value and equal say. So when your team is sitting at the table, each character shows up and you get to do what's called parallel thinking. Now, just in case you don't know what that is, write that down. Parallel thinking. Parallel thinking means everyone is going to be the same character at the same time. Okay, so it's not 6 people and every person is a certain character. It's everyone is the same character at the same time. So let me show you what this looks like. So seated at this table are a cast of characters. Coming out of the artistic world, I understand cast of characters. So here's the cast. First, there's the movie director. They're kind of looking at everything. There's the detective. They're uncovering things. There's a counselor. They're checking in with people. There's the creative, who's always sparking new ideas. There's the speaker, who is making sure that we're finding that way, we're plowing through. And then there's the reaper. And today, for the sake of time, we're just going to talk about becoming the reaper. And you thought, because you know me, that this was all going to be sunshine and unicorns and glitter today, didn't you? See, I love the reaper character because it's easy to do alone, or if you're working on something by yourself, or it's an easy one for teams to get behind and to get the hang of. So it's a good one to start with first. Remember, everyone is the same character at the same time. I know I can't hear you, but say it with me. Everyone is the same character at the same time. Okay, so we're going to become the Reaper, right? The Grim Reaper. You already imagine what the Grim Reaper does, right? It's about uncovering potential risks and challenges. So your goal when you're sitting in the Grim Reaper's chair is to uncover any potential challenges. Now, there's a host of questions you can ask, and in a moment, I'm going to share additional resources so you don't have to write all these questions down, okay? So just listen for a minute. So here are 3 examples of how the Grim Reaper would show up at the beginning of a project. So I would say, I'm wearing my Grim Reaper costume, right? Why won't this work? So then I would write down all the reasons why this decision or this person that I'm about to hire or this idea that we're going to do or this project, why won't this work? And again, there's no emotions around this. It's just literally all the reasons why it won't work. And then I might ask, okay, so what are the pitfalls? So if we do this action or this project, or if we hire this person, what are some pitfalls we might fall into from that? What's the blowback going to be, right? Or I might even say, what are the risks? If we do this, what are all the risks? And I write them all down, and you have them in front of you. So even if I never taught you any of these other characters, can you imagine how powerful just taking on the Grim Reaper is for you and your team? How many challenges you could catch before they pop up and surprise you? How many risks that you would now be aware of that you might not have been? How many missteps you could avoid? How much more successful your project will be because you've given this time and attention? See, this round table, this look will make you and your team look like total geniuses, like rock stars. It's amazing. And when we layer all these characters together and we take the time to do it, because most people don't do that, take the time to do it, it's amazing what happens. Watch out. And again, like I said, this process works for the solo person too. You just make sure you take on each role, cover it carefully, so you review the good, the bad, the ugly, the amazing for any project, goal, or big decision that you need to make. Now, obviously, you want to learn all the characters and how they seamlessly work together, as well as how you can use them to run your projects and teams with laser focus and efficiency. But for today, I just want you to start practicing wearing the cape of the Grim Reaper in your decision making, so you're catching potential challenges before they ever arise. Does that sound good? Okay. In your kit, I'm going to give you all the characters, and I'm going to give you some examples of questions that they ask. I'm not going to leave you hanging, right? But just know this is like a whole one day. Like, I could come in and teach you guys how to do this actual project management, but it's a whole day for you guys to practice, understand. We do role playing the whole bit. We actually take something you're struggling with and do it live in that thing. All right, here's what we're going to do. I want to stop the screen share, and I just want to talk to you for just a minute. I'm checking the chat box. Anything coming up? Okay. All right. Now, here's the deal. We have done a whole lot. We've covered a whole lot in 46 minutes, right? I've been covering so much ground in a little time, and I want to be sure that you have all of this in your notes. So let me do a quick review. Okay, first we talked about the 3 blocks to building common ground, and I talked to you about the ask method to help you hone your conversation towards connection and making your team members feel valued, remember? Then we dived into the importance of understanding how you share and how you receive information that comes from your own unique personality, and how you adjust your communication will mean you can influence and lead with clients, employees, and teams. Then the third aspect was about the incredible importance of paying attention to the culture around you. Whether it's your home office space or your penthouse office suite, creating a culture of joy is crucial to success, and that starts with understanding your priorities. Because without this, there isn't buy-in from teams don't work well together, and people feel alone or not valued. And now we just uncovered a matrix that allows teams to seamlessly work together, as well as how you can use them to run your projects and your teams with that same kind of focus and energy and creativity, called the Roundtable Method. And I'm sure by now you're beginning to see how stacking these keys is your ability to break old patterns that aren't working anymore and replace them with powerful communication and leadership, changing how you do project management that will transform your culture, your creativity, your teams, and ultimately your profitability or success ratio. And when you do that, your team members will begin to feel more deeply valued. Managers become empowered. They're leading with intention, and we've begun to minimize friction and conflict so the company will function and grow like a well-oiled machine. Now, I know that this might seem like a far-off dream when we're struggling, right? It's like, oh yeah, that all sounds really good, but right now in front of me is bleh, and you vomit it all out in front of you. But the reality is that this method that I'm doing is proven to work. I've been practicing what I'm teaching you today for over 10 years. I've just coalesced it into one program. And it gives you a tangible way and a path to make it happen. The change is real. I've seen it happen again and again. So while I've given you a lot to get started with today, imagine if you knew your complete DISC profile and had a customized communication plan for every member of your team. Imagine if you knew how to fully create a joyful culture of energetic leaders, laser focused on top priorities while keeping your momentum high and maximizing performance so projects and teams work together with more efficiency. Or maybe what it would feel like to have full-scale training on project management Roundtable Method so that you know every character inside and out and the questions they ask so that your project management will be proactive instead of reactive. Can you see how even adding just one of these steps into what you do would be a game changer? So to help you put this into action, I've been telling you all along, I brought you a few resources to share with you. First is the Jumpstart Kit, and it's going to include the Ask method for building common ground that we talked about, the DISC personality preview, that blueprint, so you can begin to uncover how you are and maybe start to unlock how people are around you. It has a speedy priority finder to help you hone in on what you should be focused on. And then the basic questions each roundtable character needs to ask. I've packaged them all together with explicit directions, so literally you can put this into action right now. You don't have to wait. It's like having me right alongside you going, now do this, now ask this, use this tool. Normally, it would be about $349 for this kit, but you have stuck with me for 50 minutes. So today, it's my gift to you for attending, whether you're live or, hey, some people are catching it on replay. Now, my team is going to send the link over to you. That's why I wanted you to register for this, so I'd have an email to send it to you. So be looking at it in the next 24 hours. Keep your eye on the email for your instant access to the kit so you can start playing with it right away, okay? Now, here is the deal. Here's the deal. Of course, ideally, my hope is that we get to work together beyond today. So there are a few questions here that I would like for you to reflect on and to answer maybe for yourself so that we could create a plan and a path for implementing everything we're talking about. So would you and your team benefit if I was to support you in some way? Maybe your entire company implement this CoLab method so that you would know how to build common ground and know how to influence performance and motivation levels? And what if together we were able to do a detailed DISC profile assessment for you so you'd know how to communicate from your strengths? Would that support you in maximizing your strengths at work and building your leadership skills? Or what about doing a full assessment of every team member so everyone understands how to communicate with each other better and even grow your team dynamics? If having that custom communication plan would be useful, then be thinking about that or let me in the chat box. But also, it's about building your culture and momentum in your day-to-day workflow so that everyone knows how to minimize distractions and energy zappers while maximizing focus on key priorities and collaboration. You see, this is all about optimizing your team's performance and a streamlined project management. So maybe, just maybe, I want to see if you're still with me. Can you give me a thumbs up in the chat box if you think any one of these would be helpful to you? Are you still with me? Thumbs up, or I'm here, or something in the chat box. I'm checking. Woo, woo. Yes, okay, I'm getting a couple people. All right. You see, I look at this as a wish list, right? Think about what's piquing your interest from what we did today. Everything that you believe could enhance your performance, your teams, and ultimately your company. This is exactly what we do inside the Briliant CoLab. And here's the deal. This is a customized program. It's VIP. It's literally, we can do this virtually, we can do it on site. I can do deep dive workshops for you in dynamic teams and collaboration, in custom personality and communication blueprints, in verve culture and momentum, in project management optimization, so that you know how to create your own brilliant team of leaders. This is not a cookie cutter, everyone does the same order, check in the box course. It's literally tailored to you. So I'm not selling you anything today. At all, no, nothing. You were waiting for the big sell, right? No, instead, what I like to do is create a program that's full-scale, customized, stepped, private coaching sessions for key leaders and advanced meeting and leadership assessments and strategy sessions. That's what it is. So if you enjoyed today's program and you see the value in maybe bringing this program to yourself, maybe you want to jump into something like this, or maybe your company to enhance communication, culture, project management, and leadership, I would love to talk to you further. It's not a sales pitch, like I said. I just want to have an honest conversation with you about what you need. So if you're ready to find out more, you can type more in the comments. I'll take a look at them and I'll do a follow-up with you, or maybe there's a leader that you'd rather me talk to discover how to get your team to continue what we started here today and bring it to life and implement fully right here in your day-to-day. Or I'll also give you a link later on where maybe you're thinking about this and you're like, you know what, I do want to talk to Suzanne about this. Here's the deal. I call it a sizzle session. It's like 30 minutes and 15 minutes sometimes. And we're just going to unlock what it is that you're looking for. But the first 3 people who do book a complimentary sizzle session, remember there's no strings to this or whatever. I'm just going to try to help you think through things. If you're one of the first 3 to book with me, I'm going to give you a 30-minute laser focused coaching session outside that sizzle session that usually I charge $150 for, just for you taking action and trying to better yourself, because I believe in serving first, right? We need more of that in the world, I think. Serve first. But for the quick action takers, it's a bonus. So you can say sizzle in the chat now, or you can holler at me for a time slot. It's so easy to do that. Just hit me up and we'll get your questions answered today if you've got any. I certainly hope I get to work with you all more because you're an amazing group. You're smart, you're insightful, you're motivated. You know how I know that? Because you showed up for this today. But regardless of whether I get to work with you some more or not, here is my wish for you. That through careful and intentional communication, you will break into common ground, that you continue to hone your unique communication personality, and that you build on the characters at your own roundtable as you move from project to project, and that you feel joyful through it all. Because in the end, that's what matters most. And remember, collaborative leadership builds you up, it builds your team up, and it builds your company up to stellar success. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Suzanne Castle, and this has been a preview of the Collaborative Leadership Brilliant Teams Method. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bring joy to your day. I'll see you again soon.